Assalamu alaikum dear students, welcome back to my YouTube channel Study Pack. Today you will able to learn about how do flowering plants reproduce, and this is very common topic which is part of every exam, totally every exam, and also every each and every point is very important. So in this whole video you will able to learn about many things regarding the flowering plants and how they how they reproduce and many things more. So let's get started without wasting our time. So here is the introduction. Here are some national flowers of each country in the United Nations. So have you ever wondered that how these flowering plants reproduce? So yes, today in this video you will able to learn about the structure of flowers, how pollination is, what is pollination and how it takes place, and other methods of pollination, and what is fertilization and its process. Before moving forward, here is a trivia time. That did you know that a single bee can visit up to 5,000 flowers in a day? Oh my god, that's too much. Okay, students, now here is the structure of flower, which is very complicated, but I will make it simple. Students, here are two types of reproductive parts of flower, female and male. First of all, let's talk about male reproductive part of flower. So, male reproductive part of flower is stamen. And what is stamen? So, here we can see that this part of a flower, these part, for example, there is like this part is called stamen, and stamen is made up of two things. First is that anther, this is called anther, and this stalk like structure or stem like structure is called filament. And one more thing that is about these things, that anther is actually producing pollen or pollen grains, which are the male gametes, and the filaments is actually a supportive stalk that holds up the anther. So this is about the stamen. Now let's move towards the female reproductive part, which is pistil. You can also call it as carpel. So students, now here there is three parts which are making the pistil or carpel. And what are they? So they are, first is stigma. Stigma is what, like this is a male reproductive part. This whole structure, this yellow colored structure is the pistil. So here you can see that that the tip of that whole structure is known as stigma, and this is a sticky surface that captures the pollen grain. Then you can see here that let me do it with, okay. So here you can see that stalk like structure, long tube that connects the stigma to the ovary. This is a ovary. Here you can see a oval like shape. This is a ovary. So the style connects the stigma to ovary. Now here is the next part is ovary. Ovary actually contains the number of ovules which once fertilized will develop into seed. Ovules are when ovules are when fertilized they develop into the seeds, and ovary are when fertilized they develop into fruit. So this was the two male reproductive parts which are discussed with you. Now let's talk about other parts of the flower. That first part is petals. Very unusual. You all know what are petals, and what are the petal function is just to attract the pollinators and shield the duplicated parts inside. Now the next is sepals. Sepals are these scaly leaves. You can see here the green leaves, which protects actually the structures and the reproductive organs which are inside the flower. Now student, there are two types through which the plant reproduce: pollination and fertilization. First of all, let's talk about pollination. What is pollination? So a pollination is a process of transferring the pollen grains from the anther, the male part, of one plant of one flower to the female part stigma to the another flower of the same species. Now this definition is very complicated, but let me make it clear for you all. It is only a process in which from the anther the pollen grains will be transferred to the stigma of the flower. And you know that stigma is the female part and anther is the male part, male reproductive, male part, actually the part of male reproductive part. So students, this was what a pollination is, in which let me clear it one more time. The pollen grain which will be produced from the anther be transferred will be transferred to the stigma of the flower. It can be, okay, here is one more thing, that this process can be between the one plant, or it can be from another plant too. This is whole type of pollination. It is covered in the type of pollination, so we will not go in that situation. So why it is important, why pollination is important? Pollination is actually leading towards the seed formation, which is very important for the plant growth and reproduction and the production of fruits that we eat. So students, now there are the methods of pollination. Now how pollination can be, so there are two types, like not the types but the methods of pollination. First, it can be through the insects, like bee, butterfly. They can carry the pollens from the flower to flower while they are collecting the nectar. Now secondly, it can be with from the wind can carry the pollens to the other flowers, and these pollen grains can then are lightweight and they can easily be carried by the breeze or wind. So, these are the methods of pollination through which the pollination can be occurred. Very simple. Now, what is the process of pollination? So, let's have a look on that quickly. So first of all, pollen production. uh, how a pollen can be are transferred where if it is not produced. So first of all, the anther will produce pollen, as I have told you earlier that anther produces pollen. Anther produces pollen, and anther is a male reproductive part. Secondly, attracting pollinators. Now what are the pollinators? Pollinators are the insects or can be wind. So the flower may use its colorful petal or the fragrance or the nectar to collect the pollinators, like bees, flowers, not flowers, but like butterflies and birds. Now what will happen, that transfer of pollen, that pollinator will visit another flower for nectaring or for pollen. It brushes against the an anther and picking up and carrying the pollen grains on its body, as you can see. Now the fourth is that arrival of another flower. The pollinator will then move to another flower of the same species, and some of the previous collected nuclear may be rubbed onto the stigma of the second flower, and this is how the pollination is done. The second process is fertilization. Now in this process, male and female reproductive cells or gametes are combined to develop a seed, and it is important to maintain the diversity of the plant species and for the proper functioning of the ecosystem and for the food production. Now what is the process? The first thing is fertilization. The pollen on the stigma germinates and then send a pollen tube down to the flower's ovary, and this tube delivers the male gametes to the ovule where fertilization occurs. Now then there will be a seed formation. The ovule develops into the seed, and the flower's ovary matures to a fruit enclosing the seed. The third one is seed dispersal or germination. Now here is a mature fruit can be eaten by animals, carried by the wind, or float in the water. This will allow seed to be carried to the new location or grow into a new plant. Now students, this was all about today. This is a quick recap. You can have a screenshot of this quick recap, and you can prepare something from in this quick recap. So this was all about today. Thank you so much for watching it.